Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Monday, the 8th of July 2024, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We will begin with the 8th Martyrdom anniversary of Burhan Wani. We all have observed it today. Kashmiris across the line of control, whether they be on the Pakistani side or whether they be on the Indian side of the border, they have all observed this martyrdom anniversary of this brave young man who tried to stand up to the atrocities of the Indian occupied forces. And it was just because of this resolve and the way his resolve was getting the reaction from the people in the Indian Hill Valley that the Indian forces resorted to martyring him on this very day in the year 2016 in Kokarnag. Burhan Wani started a whole new wave of consciousness amongst the people of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir to attain their right to self-determination through all means possible. This is what Pakistan has always been also saying on the different fora, that it will always be helping the people in Kashmir politically, morally, diplomatically to attain their due right to self-determination. How important has the Burhan Wani cause been so many years after his martyrdom? We will explore that today on our very segment. And now our second segment concerns the day 276 of the Palestine-Israel conflict that continues to no avail. Although there are some signs of some kind of a ceasefire agreement that might happen, the head of the Israeli intelligence has gone to initiate these talks. Some kind of positivity is there, but then there is the Israeli side that says that we are not going to go for any kind of truce until and unless we have the precondition that we can continue with our fight in Gaza. If this is the case, then what is the basic reasoning of having a ceasefire whatsoever? Anyways, the number of casualties in Palestine also continues to increase. 87,900 plus people have been killed, while in fact 38,193 people have been killed, while 87,903 have been wounded. But these are figures. The actual figure, as per one report, says that the actual number of those who have been killed overall since the 7th of October exceeds 186,000. We'll be highlighting that and more in our second story. Then we'll be talking about the 8th death anniversary of the great humanitarian and philanthropist abdulsattaredhi. This 8th death anniversary, of course, is also being observed today across the world. He was born in February on the 28th, in fact to be precise, in 1928 in Gujarat, and started his welfare services from 1951 and never looked back. Pakistan and many other countries in the world owe so much to abdulsattaredhi. He leaves behind a legacy and is a person who is unparalleled when it comes to philanthropy in Pakistan. Then we'll be talking about the month of June 2024 that has been declared the world's hottest month, and as per certain reports, it is also being said that the year 2024 might also be or become the hottest year in the history of mankind. Will that actually happen, or will the world also stand up as one to do the necessary in order to curtail the effects of climate change and the environment and this increased temperature? So much to do, so little time. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns Burhan Wani Shaheed, his martyrdom anniversary that is being observed across the world, especially on both sides of the line of control in the different Kashmir regions, and of course what his resolve stood for in 2016 and before, and what his resolve stands for today in 2024. We've been joined by two important guests. Both are in the studios. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Farzana Yaqoob Sahiba. She's a former minister with the Azad Jammu and Kashmir government. Thank you very much, Farzana Sahiba, to have joined us. Our second guest is a regular and somebody who has her pulse on foreign affairs, Dr. Amna Mahmood, foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Amna, to have joined us as well. Let's begin with you, Farzana Yaqoob Sahiba. Farzana Yaqoob Sahiba, today, like all years on this very day, Kashmiris on both sides of the line of control observe the martyrdom anniversary of Burhan Wani. Burhan Wani, that we all have seen, was an icon, continues to be an icon and a shining star of the history of Kashmir, and will always be remembered as a symbol of resistance and resilience. How does his legacy live on 8 years after his martyrdom?
I think his legacy can be seen very visibly in the actions that are taking place by the people of Kashmir. We see them protesting, we see them talking about Burhan Wani. But before we see what is happening today, let us just to remember Burhan, let us see what did he do. He just lit a fire in everyone's heart.
Agreed.
You see, we're losing hope every day. What India does to us, more than killing us, is it is taking away the hope that we have that someday we will be successful. And when these young, brilliant, educated young men and women, they come out and they stand by the desire that we have the right to be free. We have the right to live the way we want to live. We have the rights like any other human being, not just Muslim, but just like any other human being. So when such young, educated youngsters, they come out and they stand against the forces and they have nothing with them. It just is such an inspirational moment that so many youngsters idolized him. While he was alive, what he did was, he didn't go around killing people.
Have you ever
seen that he killed anyone? No, he did not kill anyone. Why was he killed by the Indian occupying force? Well, because he just made everyone so much more braver than they were. His actions provided courage to people to come out and speak out and fight against Indian army. And India hates Kashmiris for that. India hates our bravery, our courage, that we don't have any ammunition, we don't have any assistance, neither financial or ammunition. We do not have any kind of assistance, but still Kashmiris fight and stand up against an Indian army which is well equipped, well armed, well versed. It is the blue-eyed boy and girl of the world. No matter what they do with Kashmiris in Indian occupied Kashmir or with Muslims and other minorities throughout India, people are not ready to say anything. The governments are not ready to shame the Indian government about its atrocities, the way it sanctions human rights abuses at a state level. What Kashmiris have been seeing since 1947. It's such a bane for Kashmiris that India exists, because it just tortures us. But what we've seen is that torture has been seeping down into rest of India. You see, those who did not stand by us, those who did not speak about us, sadly it is they who are now suffering. So it is really sad. Back to Burhan Wani. He will always be remembered for bringing life back into us, for giving us courage to fight back.
And invoking this new passion amongst the people of Kashmir, that come what may, they have to fight for the resolve for their right to self-determination.
Yes.
I think that was a very important wave that he initiated, and that fire, that wave continues to burn within the people of the Indian Hill Valley.
It does. Every day what you see is that there are cordon and search going on. The number of freedom fighters that Indian government, especially its army, says, how many, have you ever heard a number greater than 1,000? Never. It is around 500. But how many soldiers and paramilitary forces do they need for this small number of freedom fighters? Over 900,000. It just shows what how much fear our freedom fighters invoke within the Indian heart. And that makes us proud that yes, without anything, this is who we are.
And I think we need to highlight this more and more, on how a small number, I mean, it reminds us of our religion as well, on how in different ghazwas, even a small number of Sahaba got together and fought against a much bigger army. And this is what Burhan Wani and his fight and his resolve still represents today, in this day, in 2024. Dr. Amna, every year on the anniversary of this great martyr, the Kashmiri nation renews its pledge to fulfill the great mission that Burhan Wani and more than 600,000 Kashmiris who have sacrificed their precious lives from 1947 till date. How many Kashmiris, Dr. Amna, will still continue to lay down their lives before there is some kind of resolution to this long-standing issue in the form of plebiscite and the right to self-determination?
Omar, we cannot predict a number that how many are going to, but what I perceive, as Farzana was mentioning, that Kashmiris are a resilient nation. And every independence movement, every separation movement, every movement for right of self-determination is led by the youth of that nation. And Burhan Wani is the symbol of Kashmiri youth. And what he has established is a precedent for all others to come. So, what I perceive that whatever the Indian level of atrocities, whatever the level of world's benign neglect towards the this right of self-determination movement, Kashmiris refuse to submit, and they would continue to refuse to submit. And I think that ultimately world has to surrender, because resilience of a nation is unprecedented. No other nation in the world except Palestinian and Kashmiris, they have shown this resilience. Whatever you did with them, they are standing and they are not submitting. No matter they are not given material support, no matter they are not given even humanitarian support now, no matter there is no UN, no resolutions implemented, but they are standing. I think that that shows us that nobody can defeat them. We cannot predict that how long it will, but it will.
But this is a fire, Dr. Amna, this is a philosophy, this is an idea that will never go away. You can, martyr as many Kashmiris as you want, but this is an idea that will remain solid, etched within the minds of the Kashmiris. And I think Burhan Wani has played a very, very important role in this whole movement, because he has reignited that resolve, that fire, that passion to continue till the very end, till the time that they get their due right to self-determination.
And there is no limit to sacrifices what Kashmiris are doing. And no matter the youth, rather old people, right, children, like those who housewives, they are playing their role at their own level. House searches, disgrace to women, rapes, everything they are tolerating.
Incarceration
and they are not,
of all the major Kashmiri leaders.
Intimidation, and then keeping them in jails and giving them death sentence, 22 years, 25 years and death sentence, but they are not submitting. I think that nobody can defeat that nation.
Exactly.
It is test of India itself that as Farzana mentioned, that 900,000 troops are there, and how costly it is, how scary
and
it
for
is.
A small number of a relatively small number compared to that 900,000.
Yes, and that is actually a burden on Indian economy, and India is apparently a rising economy, but in fact more than 60% are going down to poverty level now, and that is the cost of these atrocities and subjugation done by Indian government to
India
Kashmiris.
could have easily handled the situation by having a plebiscite, give them their due right to self-determination, but they know what's going to happen. That is why all the different laws that are being promulgated in the Indian Held Valley, so as to increase the number of Hindus inside the territory and to give them more rights, so that in a couple of years when they can give that right to plebiscite, they can say, oh, now have the right to self-determination, and of course the whole issue would have changed by then. Farzana, Yaqoob, Indian troops, you were talking about the coordinate search operation. Indian troops in their fresh act of state terrorism have martyred 5 Kashmiri youth in the Kulgam area of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Nothing new, very regularly goes on, more or less every day or every second day. Add to that, there is a new force of highly trained policemen who have also been placed in the Indian Held Valley to terrorize the pro-freedom people in the territory. The force comprises 960 personnel and have been deployed with a particular focus on villages close to the line of control to target, to terrorize citizens, supporting the movement for the United Nations recognized, I have to say, quote unquote, United Nations recognized right to self-determination. Again, I'd like to ask something that you more or less alluded to in your previous answer. Why has the world remained silent in the action on such tactics?
Well,
and this is just one of the so many things that have been happening in the Indian Held Valley.
The world picks and chooses what it likes to do, and when we say the world, let's be very specific. It is those 5 countries who have the veto power. Thankfully, we have China on our side, Russia sometimes, but the other 3 never. And it is particularly United States that does not want these issues resolved. It has to maintain its hegemony most probably, and that is why these issues need to be there for United States to have its security forces spread out throughout the world, be it Palestine or be it Kashmir. These issues are not being resolved. Now there are a few instances where we see that territorial issues have been resolved. South Sudan is one, East Timor is one. But you see, the peculiar part of that is that they are not Muslim states. So the world is ready to break up a country for non-Muslims, but the world is not ready to resolve issues of Muslims. Whatever number of issues that you count down, long-standing issues, you will see something in common. And whether we like to admit it or not, it's got to do about the religion. It has got to do with the number of Muslims that we have, the number of Muslim countries who are suffering in this day and age.
So the clash of religion, the clash of civilization that we've been talking about in so long is actually a reality that
we've been facing the brunt of it. We've been facing, we're facing it, we're in the front lines. Kashmiris are at the front line. Why we go back to Palestine again and again is because whatever Israel does in Palestine, you must have noticed that is just what India does in Kashmir. And by the way, there are some tactics that India has been doing even before Israel. So these two close friends, India and Israel, starting with the same alphabet, have similar tactics. They're also phenomenally good at creating propaganda. They're phenomenally good at creating good stories about themselves and about their countries. They're really good at selling this tale, this imaginary, fictionary tale that they're the best. India is considered as the world's largest democracy. What a farce. The sentence itself is so oxymoronic. How can India be the world's biggest democracy where the plight of the minorities is visible to everyone? Kashmir is just one state, but Kashmiris are, you know, they show the mirror to India. That is why India has a problem. Wherever Kashmiris, when they go to study in different Indian states, if they are happy about Pakistan, you see, the problem with Kashmiris is that we do associate with Pakistan. When Pakistan wins a match, we do get happy and we will celebrate, and India hates it. India hates it that within its so-called territories, there are people who love Pakistan. There are people who celebrate Pakistan, who celebrate the culture, the people of Pakistan, and India thoroughly hates that. And what do? They punish Kashmiris. So if you see, you will see that Kashmiri students in different states, studying in different Indian universities, if they have ever expressed their passion and love for Pakistan in different instances, be it for games or for any other reason, they've been punished. And they've been punished severely. You will see that when it comes to punishing minorities, and I don't call Kashmiris Indians, Indians treat Kashmiris at different power level. They have to met out extra painful punishments for Kashmiris. Why do they do that? Because they have been unable to maim us or to remove the desire of freedom. Kashmiris are not fighting this fight because they have some kind of assistance. Kashmiris are not fighting this fight because someone might be out there helping them. No, we don't have a choice. Kashmiris have nowhere to go other than stay in Kashmiris. Kashmiris have chose not to be with India. We do not associate with India. We are not part of India. And that is what is problematic for India, because it has other states as well.
Because you know, the fact is that if it opens the Pandora's box as far as what I would, I'm just citing their version, as far as any illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, it will open the Pandora's box for the dozens of others movements as well that have been asking for freedom. And that is what India does not want, to open that box, despite the fact that there are so many United Nations sponsored resolutions that have asked India to conduct that plebiscite for the right of self-determination of the people of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Not since now, I mean since decades, but they don't want to do that and they will never do that. This is what I think. Dr. Amna, a lot of things have also been happening. The World Kashmir Awareness Forum, which is a Washington-based advocacy group, has started digital advertising on trucks across the US to advocate for the right to self-determination of the Kashmir people. There are different slogans, of course, that we have been talking about during the course of the show. Then, specific to today, the All Parties Hurriyat Conference as our Jammu and Kashmir chapter also organized a protest demonstration in Islamabad today. There were other protest demonstrations in other parts of the country as well. These small, I should say maneuvers, let's put it that way, like with these digital trucks, like these protest demonstrations, what effect do they have on the region or on the world or on the international media? Because this is what they are trying to go towards, so that their plight could be highlighted.
Apparently, it looks that there may be a very negligible or minimal effect, but I think that looking at these advertisements, people crying, women are crying for their children, and people are assassinated and having wounds on bodies, bleeding wounds. I think that it makes an effect on the human mind, and miseries are realized by the sensitive hearts. And if it is not seen, then people think that okay, something is being happening, and Farzana mentioned that it is camouflaged through the propaganda of different media channels, and they are not highlighting this. So I think that is the better way, that these advertisement moving with the bus and trucks and having impact on the minds who are having their opinion.
Because it registers somewhere along the way, whosoever reads it.
And along with that, we have seen Altaf Wani Sahab sent his speech in Geneva and in front of United Nations and in front of OIC and number of other organizations. Though these apparently have symbolic impact, but I think that is a long lasting impact, because we only have this way to keep this alive. Otherwise, Pakistan has done everything, taking it to UN and raising this issue to every forum, and in every international interaction we have this agenda item that country or friend should support Pakistan's Kashmir policy. So I think that has a lot of impact. I want to add one thing that you asked from Ms. Farzana, that actually the world powers, they want to keep wounds bleeding in different areas, so that give them bargaining chip to these powers. For instance, if they would say to India, okay, we will forget about Kashmir, but you have to come to our camp in AUKUS and Quad to encircle China, and they would be, for instance, for a while they would be on their side. And then whenever they would make some point, they would raise this issue that you are doing a human rights violation, and then they become to the terms again. So I think that this is the international politics. And this Kashmir issue is created by the way, international politics of Britain. And same is the case with Palestine, that was created through United Nations. That was the basic wound that was bleeding because of UN. Otherwise, it was having no presence. So I think that when there is a clash of civilization, then we have to realize that we are defending civilization, and that civilization is Muslim, because all are having alliance. So what Fukuyama said in 1990s, that it is the Confucianism and Islam. Now Confucianism is standing with you, that is China, and somehow Russia as well. But Islam is not organizing to the level to defend itself. So we the Muslims should realize that we accept it or not, but we are the target of other forces. I would not say Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism.
And to add to that, Islamophobia, that is again adding fuel to the fire.
That is two level. One is kinetic war against the Muslims and potential wars against the Muslim, and second is cultural war against the Muslim in the shape of Islamophobia all over the world.
I agree. To all the figures, Farzana, Yaqoob, when it comes to the casualties, those who have been incarcerated. I mean, there's a report that says at least 30,063 people have been injured in the last 6 months. 1,934 Kashmiris, including 286 in fake encounters in custody, have been killed since the extrajudicial killing of Burhan Wani in 2016. But you see different effects that are also happening, like soldiers that are committing suicide in the Indian held valley because their morale is broken, because of apparently they are forced to do acts that they considered inhumane. Then the BJP also, we've seen, did not win any of the 3 Kashmir seats since it had started running in 1996, and did not participate in the elections this time as well in Kashmir. Do you feel that somehow this whole wave that was reinitiated by Burhan Wani has created an impact that will slowly and steadily burn across India and pressurize somehow India, directly or indirectly, whether it likes it or not, to move towards the right cause of plebiscite. Will it happen? Can we be cautiously optimistic or not?
Well, with Indians, no.
Okay.
To the starting point of your question, the psychological impact of these human rights abuses on the Indian army, as my co-panelist said, as well endowed India might seem to be to the world. You see, these soldiers are not really well kept in these areas. These for them, these areas are different. They're a little harsh. We have better weather, but we're used to it. You see, someone coming from south, from a very hot territory, it wouldn't be comfortable from plains to mountains. So these soldiers, by the way, are not really well kept. So much for the Indian, money, wherever it is going. At least it's not going for the safekeeping of their own soldiers. Second is that the number of people that are being incarcerated. I mean, would you believe that one of our political prisoners, Mr. Faktu, has been in prison longer than Nelson Mandela? Hardly people know that, there are so many people, so many political prisoners who have been incarcerated without any rhyme and reason. And no questioning. So we do have to put in an effort. The thing is that whether someone can do something about it or not, at the end of the day, as I said, Kashmiris don't have a choice. It's not like, if someone is going to help me, help us, so let's fight back, push back, and if no one is helping us, then let's just be very complacent about this. No, Kashmiris cannot be complacent, because India does not treat Kashmiris well. India abuses and maims Kashmiris. They've been asking, back to the point of the co-panelist, we have Muslim countries who are saying that we will invest in Indian occupied Kashmir. What a shame for those Muslim countries that are even saying that they will invest in a place where Muslims are being targeted, where Muslims are being abused by the Indian government. And what they do is that they want to show that Kashmir is calm and peaceful and there are no issues.
But in fact, the world knows that this is the reality.
But they have checks at every point. It is heavily militarized, and I don't know who and why would anyone want to invest in
that is where Burhan Wani, his work, his mission comes into play. The fire, the passion, the zeal that he had, which lives to this date, and that is why we observe this day, to renew that pledge that all Kashmiris across the world, whether they be in Pakistan or India or across the world, will continue to support the cause of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir people, so that they can attain their right to self-determination. Thank you very much, Farzana Yaqoob Sahiba. We've taken a lot of your time. It was wonderful having you on board for this part of the show. Thank you so very much. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns Palestine, day 276 of the Israel-Palestine conflict that continues to move forward despite a United Nations Security Council resolution, despite the different talks of peace, of truce, of ceasefire that still go on, but nothing concrete has happened to date. We've been joined by Reza Shah, who is a senior analyst online. Reza, thank you very much to have joined us. Reza, Israeli army says that the forces have launched a military operation at the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza. They say that the complex contained combat equipment and detention rooms that belonged to the Palestinian movement. Also, there are dozens of families that are trapped in their homes under a barrage of bombardment. There is a gathering of people that has been attacked in the Tay Sultan neighborhood. 4 people have been killed, and this whole spate of killing and the whole barbarities continue without abate. The journalists are also being killed. At least 4 journalists have been killed in the last month alone. At least 38,193 people have been killed. Till I last read, till now, as we speak, I think the number must have increased, and so 87,903 wounded, which includes more than 15,983 children and 10,637 women. What are you foreseeing in the next days?
Thank you. these stats are very harrowing, and one feels sad, one feels angry, one feels frustrated. This has been going on for 9 months, this cycle of genocide, killing a particular race for a particular religious agenda, which is just to literally just wipe out Gaza, flatten it, and take it over and just annex it, basically. British medical journal Lancet today actually, the unofficial, they said 186 must have been martyred by now, and there's at least about 10,000 under the actual rubble at the moment. So we have these official figures, yes, but because of the state of the ground realities there, you can't get the actual numbers. Now, where is this going to end? This is not going to end. This is going to be a cycle of genocide after genocide after genocide, and the Palestinians will keep on suffering and suffering. So where do we see the future here? I can't see Israelis stopping anytime now. There is a peace negotiation cycle, again, the 9th one in Egypt that's going to be held, or they're having talks now. Egyptians are there, the CIA chief is there, Qataris are there, and so forth. And it makes you think, if you
hold on to that thought, Reza, because we've also been joined by Dr. Maleeha Lodhi, former ambassador to UN, and I'll just pass on that question that you just alluded to her. Dr. Saiba, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will agree to a deal with Palestine only if it agrees to the condition of resuming fighting in Gaza. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant insists on continuing fighting with Lebanon's Hezbollah as well, even if a truce agreement is reached in Gaza. An Israeli delegation that is headed by its spy chief is in the Egyptian capital for mediated talks later today. That has been reported. What are the expectations this time, Dr. Maleeha? Do you feel something can happen after those countless number of times that we have heard that there will be a ceasefire, that there will be talks that will lead to a resolution? What's your take this time?
Well, as you know, the talks have been on and off. They've been in deadlock for some time now. At the UN, of course, we've seen a complete failure of the Security Council because they have failed to adopt a resolution because of Israel's opposition to a permanent ceasefire. And the Americans echo that, and therefore they always come in the way. So the war hasn't stopped, we know now, for 8 months because the United States and Israel have not agreed to a permanent ceasefire. Now, the talks that you are talking about, which are taking place in the region, in the Middle East, they have resumed after a prolonged deadlock. And I think the expectations are that there may well be some kind of progress. It doesn't mean that the deal is going to be sealed, but some progress on a ceasefire for hostages deal. Hamas is reported to have made certain concessions on the prisoner deal and on the ceasefire. We don't know the specifics of that, but certainly what we do know is that the United States now is trying to convince Israel to respond to the modified position that Hamas has taken. So, I mean, you know, it's hard for me to even say this cautious optimism, because every time we say that, nothing really happens. Meanwhile, as you yourself pointed out much earlier in the show, the number of people killed by Israeli military actions, the number of people martyred, Palestinians martyred, has really been going up exponentially, with Lancet, one of the world's most reputable medical journals, saying that the death toll could be something around 186,000 because many dead bodies lie buried under the rubble. So nobody really even has an accurate idea of the number of people killed. What we do know is that the Israeli aggression has led to ethnic cleansing. It has led to genocide. That 8 months have seen 2 million people from being displaced from their homes all over the Gaza Strip. Most of them are now crowded into the very, very small city of Rafah. But that doesn't mean anything, because wherever they are, the bombings don't stop. Then famine is, of course, not just threatened. There is acute famine already in many parts of Gaza, which has resulted in the death of many Palestinians, including children. So, this is a very grave situation. And yet the international community has failed The United Nations Security Council has failed. So all eyes are now on these talks that you were mentioning. And we don't really know what the outcome would be, except that there is some reasonable chance of progress because of the position taken by Hamas.
All right, all right. Kindly stay with us, Dr. Saiba. Dr. Amna, thousands of Israelis have protested in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, where I'm trying to put pressure on Netanyahu's government to go for this deal that I've just been talking to with Dr. Maleeha Lodhi. Will such pressure tactics have any impact whatsoever on the Israeli government or its resolve in order to move for ceasefire or not? Because even part of the ceasefire deal, as far as Netanyahu is concerned, is that they want to continue fighting in Gaza.
Actually, Mr. Netanyahu is not accepting any deal because he wants to survive, because he knew that if the war would be over, his government would be over. And but the people of Israel, they are facing everything. You know, yesterday Maroon air base was destroyed by Hezbollah, and that was just on the border of Lebanon. And if they could destroy that, they can advance more. And they are having all the capacity to attack with drones, with missiles, you know. And that capacity is lacking by the Gazans. So Israel wants to have their muscles flexed on Gazans, but they want to have war with the Hezbollah as well. So they want to have a war mania in Israel, and the voters would be, you know, calm, and there would be no elections. Otherwise, there would be in-house change against Netanyahu. And this protest is having to influence, they want to influence the government to have compromise and accepting this deal in Egypt, and that's why they are doing that. But I don't think Mr. Netanyahu is accepting that, because otherwise he won't be able to survive. He want to continue, he want to shelter behind the war, otherwise he would be tried for war crimes, and he would be having no place in government. And that's why he is avoiding. And in the near future, if United States would not take any action and they would not pressurize Israeli policy makers, I think there would be no deal in near future. Otherwise, that war would continue.
All right, Reza, what about the Israel-Hezbollah and Israel-Houthi conflict? The last few days have seen that escalating to a certain extent. Do you feel there is going to have a regional impact of this Hezbollah Israel Houthi conflict, because both the Hezbollah and the Houthis are saying that they will continue until there is peace in Gaza, but we don't see peace coming anytime soon to Gaza. So what about this regional conflict? Do you feel more countries will be engulfed in the days to come?
Very good question. The problem with Israel right now is they've got northern Israel, Galilee, the whole region, the Golan Heights. The whole region is aflame. There's hundreds and hundreds of missiles. Hezbollah conducts roughly 8 operations per day. And so 9 months on, rough calculation, roughly about just under 2,500 operations. And just I think 2 days ago, Sayyid Nasrallah also said, we'll rain down 1,000 projectiles, missiles on Haifa. It's very hard now for Israel to wrap up the Gaza front and move on to the northern front, because that's going to escalate. It's a 132 km borderline between Lebanon and Israel, number one. Number two, the Syrians. There's also news that the Taliban, the brigade of the Fatimiyun, there's other brigades that have come from other regional countries who are already landed in Syria. So as far as Hezbollah and the axis of resistance is concerned, they are ready for a wider conflict, even though they don't want this. Their condition is, we will stop when there's going to be a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Now, answer to your question, and there are reports on the Lebanese intelligence that Israel is planning to invade southern Lebanon roughly mid-July or the third week of July. If that ensues, you'll have a wider conflict. And when you mention the actual Yemenis, there's enough intel in the intelligence community right now that this won't be just within the Middle East. This will spread to the borders of Europe. So Yemen has already announced a few days ago that they are going to close the Strait of Gibraltar. So that's another choke point. Now, how are they going to do that? They've now got some allies who are supporting the axis of resistance from Mali, Burkina Faso, this is Niger, Algeria, and Libya. There are militias. They're all going to fire projectiles. So this is actually southern Europe. So Northern Europe, you've got Ukraine. Southern Europe, the Mediterranean Sea will see the Gaza conflict widen. You're then looking at multiple countries. That this is the African great game, and then the conflict of the Middle East. Multiple countries will get involved, and this is a picture, and this is a scene for the World War III. So sanity should prevail in the
that extent, because but of course all options are there in front of Israel. Let's see which option it goes for, because the repercussions could be extremely severe, not only for Israel but I think for the world at large as well. Thank you very much, Reza Shah, senior analyst, to have joined us, to have given us your point of view as far as the latest in Palestine and the situation in Palestine and the regional conflict that is escalating is concerned. Thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Maleeha, Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur to the occupied Kashmiri territory, says the people in Gaza are trapped in a hell without comparison. She also says, quote unquote, the international community seems to be oblivious to the increasing violence against the Palestinians in the West Bank, also in Gaza. She also says that Gaza is not an isolated case. Israel seems to be at war with the Palestinians as a whole. What's your comment on that? If Israel really is at war with Palestinians as a whole, it's not about some Palestinian organization or Gaza, then what is the ultimate game plan as far as Israel is concerned?
Well, the game plan has been clear from the word go. What they are trying to do is, why do we keep using the word ethnic cleansing? Ethnic cleansing is really the design of the Israeli government and its army. It is really also to push as many Palestinians as they can out of their homeland. It is, after all, their homeland. It's occupied territory. So their plan and design has been clear. I think what you talk about in terms of the international community, I mean, it's a big disappointment, but I think we also have to recognize that today the international community is also preoccupied. Many of the big powers, especially those who are among the P5 in the UN Security Council, because that is the premier body that's responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. The United States is in the throes of its election campaign. In fact, it's in chaos because one candidate simply has failed to make an impact, and it's not clear what will happen. But in any case, the preoccupation is with election. In France, another P5 member, we have seen elections which have also, not also, but which have resulted in a hung parliament. So they are preoccupied with that. The UK has just got a new government. So, across the board, what we're looking at is key members of the international community are now sort of focused on themselves and their domestic issues. And in the process, Israel has been given a free pass, as it were. It has a license to continue to do what it is doing. And what it is doing, as I said, has been clear from the word go. This is genocide. This is trying to bring about the extinction of a people and to grab as much land as possible from them. And not that Israel hasn't grabbed land before. And then if you look at what's happening in the West Bank, I mean, raids continue. Settlers continue to attack Palestinians. They continue to occupy Palestinian land. So I think the violence is across the board. But as I said, the danger is that the international community is sort of so preoccupied that it's looking away. Plus, I think after 8 months, perhaps a certain fatigue is set in, and the international community is not responding the way it should be.
But we don't know, Dr. Maleeha, whether that fatigue will go in favor of Israel or not. Only we will know in maybe a week or 10 days' time what Israel's real intentions are as far as this, at least this ceasefire deal that it apparently is moving in the right direction is concerned, or any other intention that it has with the fatigue that you talked about as well. We'll also have to see how much the international P5 countries at least go forward as far as their cooperation with Israel is concerned. Thank you very much, Dr. Maleeha Lodhi, to have joined us as well. Finally, Dr. Amna, so much is happening when it comes to the atrocities on the Palestinians. But what is also adding fuel to the fire is the fact that they have a shortage of food, they have a shortage of water, they have a shortage of basic amenities, and they have a shortage of health facilities and medicine. And this is adding to the crisis that the Palestinians are facing, not only in Gaza but also in Rafah. There is a fuel crisis as well, due to which the hospitals cannot run properly. Most of the hospitals that were running have been bombarded by the Israelis, and so on and so forth. Children are dying of starvation, of dehydration. What are you looking towards in the next couple of weeks? Will some respite come?
Omar, I think that it is very unfortunate. We have discussed already that this is the world we are living in, 21st century, where the food, water, medicine are used as the weapon of war. Early morning I received a message from a Palestinian friend, and she said that today is the first day of the new Muslim year.
Yes.
And we are celebrating like before dawn. We come out of home and call our children to come back because washroom facilities are not available and they are dispersed for that. And we are calling them because as the dawn, as the sun rises, then bombardment starts. This is the dawn of New Year for Palestinians.
There was no dawn for them on Eid, there was no dawn for them on any other occasion as well.
And we are helpless. And there is no recite visible. You see that they are attacking on UN installations, UN shelters, and UN facilities of medicine limited available to the world. And unless and until there is a ceasefire and there is a truce, there would be no supply, and they have literally destroyed all the routes bringing food, water intake. And this is the world looking, silently.
Let's see what happens. Dr. Amna, I mean, we will know maybe as a result of the ceasefire deal, if it happens, when it happens.
As Madam Maleeha pointed out, they are doing ethnic cleansing, genocide. They want to eradicate the whole nation of Palestine.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Amna, to have joined us. We're a bit short of time, or else I would have loved to talk a bit more with you, but for next time. Let's come to our last two stories. The first concerns the 8th death anniversary of the great humanitarian and philanthropist Abdulsattaredhi Saab. He was born on the 28th of February 1928 in Gujarat and started his services from the year 1951, establishing the largest volunteer ambulance network along with shelters for homeless people and animals and orphanages across the country. He's received various awards, including the Asian Nobel, the Lenin Peace Prize, and Nishan-e-Imtiaz. But of course, it is his legacy that continues to move on. It is the work that he has done over the decades that people are always going to remember, and that is why we always observe today as the day that humanity began working in Pakistan. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, last June, that is June 2024, was declared the world's hottest month, and a lot of organizations are also saying, for example, the EU's climate change monitoring service says that the way the temperatures have been increasing in June, and as June has been the hottest world's hottest month as well, it appears as if this year, that is 2024, is also going to be the hottest year in the world's history. Well, that points to the fact that we need to do more as far as climate change is concerned, and if we do not do, the temperature is going to continue to increase, and we are going to suffer every year with this increase in temperatures, and of course the animals and all the flora and fauna as well. So time for the world to take a front seat and do the needful, whether it comes to Palestine, whether it comes to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and whether it comes to climate change. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.